Good morning. I think people are still settling into their seats. You can always come down closer to the stage. Good, well, good morning, everyone. Bienvenidos a todos. My name is Richard Rand. I am the Associate Director for Collections here at the J. Paul Getty Museum. It's my great pleasure to welcome all of you to this weekend's symposium, Encounters, Utopias, and Experimentation, from Pre-Columbian Tenochtitlán to Contemporary Buenos Aires. This is actually a rather wonderful and, if not unique, at least unusual program for us at the Getty. We've combined all of our programs and all of our exhibitions into one 3-day symposium. It's kind of a landmark event and was a big collaborative effort by a number of people across the Trust. So we're very excited to have all of you here for 2.5 days of presentations and discussions. And of course, this is a joint effort related to Pacific Standard Time, LA. Another wonderful program across the Southland, organized, of course, through the Getty Trust and specifically through the efforts of the Getty Foundation. The Getty Foundation has spearheaded Pacific Standard Time, LA, a groundbreaking and far-reaching exploration of Latin American and Latino art that manifests itself, as you know, in exhibitions, performances, public programs at more than 70 museums across the Southland and cultural institutions. And I draw your attention to this little booklet that we have published. It's available out front that lists all of the PST LALA programs across the Southland. It's a very handy guide, and I'm sure all of you will do your best to go to every one of them. But the impact of this initiative will have on our understanding of Latin American and Latino art is certain to be far-reaching and long-lasting. I want to specifically acknowledge my colleagues at the Getty Foundation, Deborah Marrow, the director, Joan Weinstein, and Heather McDonald, and everyone at the Getty Foundation, and indeed across the Trust, in particular our Board of Trustees, who so passionately championed the spirit of Pacific Standard Time, LA, over these past 3 years. Here at the Getty, our 4 programs have worked together to organize no fewer than 4 exhibitions, an unprecedented collaborative enterprise. We had 4 exhibitions open across our campus, all on the same evening. You know them, but I will just list them and encourage you to go visit all of them during the weekend. It's really worthwhile and, of course, relates directly to the themes of our symposium. Golden Kingdoms, Luxury and Legacy in the Ancient Americas. It's brought together nearly 400 objects from 50 international lenders. It's one of only 2 Pre-Columbian exhibitions in Pacific Standard Time, LA. The exhibition was jointly organized by the Getty Museum and the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, where it will be presented next year. Photography in Argentina, 1850-2010, Contradiction and Continuity, spans a period of over 150 years and represents one of the most ambitious presentations of Argentinian photography ever to be undertaken by an American museum. It's on view in all of the galleries of our Center for Photographs in the West Pavilion. Making Art Concrete, works from Argentina and Brazil in the Colección Patricia Phelps de Cisneros, was organized by the Getty Conservation Institute and the Getty Research Institute in association with the museum. That show, which is also in the museum's West Pavilion, analyzes the new techniques and unconventional materials in paintings and sculptures pioneered by post-war artists in Brazil and Argentina. And last, but by no means least, The Metropolis in Latin America, 1830-1930, at the Getty Research Institute galleries, explores how the course of a century of rapid urban growth, socio-political upheaval, and cultural transitions reshaped the architectural landscapes of major cities in Latin America. And as I said, I encourage all of you to visit each of these exhibitions over the course of the weekend. And of course, in the next several months, see as many of the other exhibitions as you can. This weekend's symposium will no doubt enrich and extend the research and scholarship exemplified by these marvelous projects. Over the next 3 days, we will hear from a truly impressive international group of scholars, curators, artists, and conservators, all exploring a fascinating variety of issues and questions stemming from our 4 exhibitions. I hope you have seen a copy. You all have a copy of the weekend's program. This is accurate. I apologize. I think there was some people came early, but just remember, each day the program starts at 10 a.m. So follow this program and you'll be all right. Today's session will be devoted to Golden Kingdoms. Tomorrow, Saturday, we'll focus on the metropolis in Latin America in the morning, and then photography in Argentina in the afternoon. And then Sunday morning, the session will take up the exhibition Making Art Concrete. Each of our sessions will consist of several presentations, followed by a period of discussion among the participants, who will soon arrive, and all of you. Please hold your questions till the end of the session's program. The moderator will then lead the discussion. And I also want to point out that on Sunday at 1 p.m., my colleague Andrew Perchuk, Associate Director of the Getty Research Institute, will wrap things up with some closing remarks. And I also want to point out that tomorrow, Saturday, we will have a reception at the end of the last session for everyone to get together and have a refreshment and continue our discussions. And of course, I encourage everyone not to miss our keynote lecture by the wonderful Cecilia Vicuña, a celebrated poet, artist, and filmmaker. She will be speaking on Quipu Body Line, a writing in space. And please note that she will be speaking here in this auditorium. All programs will be in the museum lecture hall. Okay, and a few more programming notes before we get started. All programs are simultaneously translated. If you would like a translation device, you can pick it up in the museum, in the lecture hall lobby, available in English and Spanish. And of course, as always, as we begin our program, I remind you to please turn off your cell phones. All right, now without further ado, let's get started. This morning's session will be moderated by Joanne Pillsbury of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where she serves as the Andral E. Pearson Curator of the Arts of Africa, Oceania, and the Americas. I should also add that Joanne was formerly an Associate Director of the Getty Research Institute, so welcome home, Joanne. Along with Kim Richter of the Getty Research Institute and Tim Potts, the Director of the Getty Museum, they conceived and organized Golden Kingdoms. So please join me in welcoming Joanne Pillsbury.
Thank you, Richard, and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. We'll be starting off the symposium in the heart of the Andes. We'll be beginning around 1000 BC, and we'll be running up to 1300, 1400, just a few centuries before the arrival of the Inca in the Andes. Our 3 speakers have been pivotal figures in terms of the archaeology of northern Peru, and have been individuals who have radically transformed our understanding of Andean, indeed ancient American prehistory in general. So we're very excited to see some of these new discoveries from recent years. Our first speaker is Yoshio Onuki, and he's Professor Emeritus at the University of Tokyo. He's participated in many excavations in northern Peru, including at the sites of Cotoche, La Pampa, Huacaloma, and most importantly, perhaps, the site of Kunturwasi. There's some wonderful works from that site in the exhibition. His work in the northern Andes has radically changed our understanding of the important formative period of Peru. So this period around, in the first millennium BC, where we see this exciting development, the first spectacular works of gold regalia, and so forth. He was decorated by Peru's Congress in 2008, and he was given an honorary doctorate by the Universidad Nacional Mayor de San Marcos in 2010. Please join me in welcoming Professor Onuki.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I express my deepest gratitude to the Getty Center and all the people who have worked for the preparation of this exposition, Gold Kingdoms, full of wonder and beauty, as testimony of the amazing creativity of the Native Americans before Columbus. Today, I would like to present a little more facts about Kunturwasi, an archaeological site in northern Peru. 5 objects excavated from this site are exhibited in the exposition. But our showcase of Kunturwasi still have more species, so-called luxury art, and so I hope that you get to know about the objects in the cultural context of ancient world. Well, Kunturwasi is located on the western slope of the Andean Mountains in northern Peru, about 100 kilometers to the west of the modern city of Cajamarca. Being situated on the top of a hill, 2,300 meters above sea level, Kunturwasi enjoyed a beautiful landscape. The first modification of the hill to a kind of religious center was about 1,000 years before Christ, BC. But it was around 800 BC that Kunturwasi was converted a new ceremonial center with platforms, retaining walls, plazas, a complicated subterranean drainage system. We can see some remnants of those activities preserved in situ today. The research project of the University of Tokyo and the University of Saitama of Japan began in 1988 and ended in 2003. Excavations of 12 seasons revealed complicated overlapping traces of temple activities through time, but finally we could distinguish 4 phases for the consecutive activities of temples. The 4 phases here is the chronology of Kunturwasi site. The 4 phases distinguished are the Idolo phase, Kunturwasi, Kopa, and Sotera. As I said, it is in the Kunturwasi phase that a large scale of remodeling of center with high and strong retaining walls around the top of the hill, the central stairway, square and round plazas, and so on. The 3 platforms, this is the facade and the central stairway and the central plaza and central platform around this here, and the eastern platform and the western platform forming the U-shaped complex. The three platforms arranged in a U-shaped form, embracing a square sunken court, is the most important part of the new ceremonial center. Then unexpected findings were waiting for us. 5 special tombs were discovered below the floor of the central platform. Here, within this platform, 5 tombs were prepared before finishing the whole structure. This is a hall. This is a platform of well, it's all right. 4 of those tombs had a lot of well-made and sophisticated objects of gold and also stone, bone, shell, together with also well-made pottery. The first tomb we named ATM-1 was for an old man and associated with a gold crown and other objects like a stirrup spout bottle of an eagle form, 3 trumpets of conch shell, a pair of earrings of precious stones, etc. Here is the gold crown. You can imagine how big it is. And a stirrup spout bottle of a form of an eagle. Oh, right. Eagle and trumpet of conch shell, we have 3. And a set of a pair of earrings. The second tomb was also for an aged man with gorgeous objects of gold. They are a crown. They are a crown which is exhibited here in this exposition. A pair of ear ornaments of rectangular form and 2 mouth masks, one of which is exhibited this time in this exhibition. All of these pieces are decorated by repoussé or embossing technique. The mouth mask of the same idea were found in the Calima culture of Colombia, but they are a little later than Kunturwasi. But they show us that how to wear those mouth masks hanging from the nose septum. An old woman was buried in the tomb ATM-4 with a stirrup spout bottle and almost 7,000 beads of precious stones and shell. One kind of stone, blue in color, it's a special stone, the name of which is sodalite. According to geologists, the only quarry for this kind of sodalite is in Bolivia, more than 2,000 kilometers away from Kunturwasi. How it was brought to Kunturwasi 3,000 years ago remains to be investigated. 2 more tombs with gold objects were found outside the central platform. One was here, and the other one is here. One was for a man with a round pectoral and a beautiful stirrup spout bottle, modeled after a frog, painted in 3 colors. And this is the face and the rear side. The other tomb, BTM1, was for a middle-aged man who was buried wearing a crown, a pair of earrings, and 2 pairs of hanging ear ornaments, all of gold, and stone beadwork around the neck. Here is the head, the crown, earrings, and ear ornaments, hanging ear ornaments here. And this is a crown. And this is earrings with the bird motif and also the hanging ear ornament. And this is a pair of ear ornaments, very beautiful and sophisticated. The size is very big from the ear globe until the coat of the arms. It's very long and it's very heavy. Now let us think about the meaning of these findings. Stylistically, the purpose and the repoussé designs belong to the so-called Kupsnike style that was dominant in the north coast of Peru from 1200 to 800 BC approximately. This Kupsnike style can be recognized also in pottery, bone spatula, stone sculpture, and the U-shaped arrangement of platforms that appeared in Kunturwasi around 800 BC. Therefore, it is highly possible that the gold objects were fabricated by specialists in the north coast around 1000 BC and brought to Kunturwasi at the beginning of construction of the temple. Anyway, these objects are the oldest gold works so far, not only in Peru but also in the whole Americas from north to south. Then various questions emerge immediately. For example, what led the Kupsnike people to appreciate the kind of metal, this kind of metal, gold? Where and how did the people exploit or gather the gold and finished it to artistic masterpieces? We must wait for the answer until new study or new discoveries come out. But it's worth noting that the gold objects are not merely for personal ornaments, but also they are elaborated to express iconography which convey certain cosmological meanings which were understandable to the people of that time. But today, in the 21st century, 3,000 years after, it is extremely difficult for us to capture the meaning. One example is this crown of 14 human faces hanging. The hexagonal framework show that it means, this framework, the hexagonal frameworks, shows that this is the expression of a woven basket. And the 14 heads within the basket, it means that the decapitated heads are in the basket and are to present it to some kind of divine force, maybe, so as to get some benefits in return, beneficial returns. There are many similar iconographic expressions in pottery and other objects of the Kupsnika style. This kind of expression, the heads, human heads in the basket or in the bag. And this is an example, a stone plate in which a spider monster carries human heads here, and also he has he had a decapitated head by the hair. This motif continues almost 1,000 years until 1,000 years later or more in the North Coast. Very traditional, the motif in the North Coast. Another example is the mouth mask. The mouth mask. The central figure is a monster. The monster, he screws up his mouth and his nose is wrinkled. This monster grabs with sharp claws two small figures on the backs. Here with claw and this small figure, naked, without teeth. It means they are still a small child or baby, and also twins. This design makes us remind a myth of twins and as cultural heroes who brought the technique of growing crops like maize and manioc, as well as of making fire to cook to human beings. And many versions of this myth of the same theme are reported from the Andes to the tropical lowlands along the Amazon and Orinoco rivers. In controversy, more objects which iconographic representation of mythological themes. So we should consider that those luxury objects were not simply to adorn or make a gorgeous appearance, but rather they were important to demonstrate the social and religious role of the person who wore them in special occasions, and at the same time to remind him or her the responsibility to behave solemnly and rightly in the immense cosmos which human beings cannot control. Well, finally, please let me show you a byproduct of this discovery of the oldest gold in the Americas. The discovery caused a deep interest not only in the objects but also in the site itself among the local people of a humble and small agricultural village in the Andean Mountains. They had been protecting the site against illegal digging since before our excavation began. And they are still protecting even after finding of these things. They insisted that those they call the treasure of Kunturwasi temple must remain in the village. But the Peruvian government, according to the law, they told us that bring them all to Lima. And so we couldn't decide which. But impressed and moved by sincere desire of the people who insisted to keep the so-called treasure in the village, we decided to build a museum. We planned the exposition in Japan for 2 years and received contribution of many ordinary people of Japan for 2 years, and received the contribution of many people. The museum was done and donated to the local people, the village, in 1994. It is still there at the foot of the hill of Kunturwasi, well guarded, well administrated by our local people. And it is a fruit of collaboration and mutual understanding between the local people and the archaeologists of Japan and Peru. We have worked with them, we have stayed with them in the houses, and we ate, we drank, and together. I hope that many of you come and see the museum and the site and encourage these local people. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Christopher Donnan, and he's Professor Emeritus of Anthropology at UCLA. And he's been studying the Moche civilization for some 5 decades, combining systematic analysis of Moche art with archaeological excavations in Peru. His many publications include Moche Tombs at Dos Cabezas, published in 2007. We're delighted to feature some of these works upstairs in the exhibition. And he's also the author of numerous other publications that are really mainstays for the field. Please join me in welcoming Professor Donnan.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have been invited to participate in this symposium in conjunction with such an extraordinary exhibit of pre-Columbian treasures. What I would like to do today is focus on one civilization, the Moche, that flourished on the north coast of Peru between about 200 and 800 AD. These people were extraordinary craftsmen, and their pottery is so beautiful and so accomplished. They were very skilled at three-dimensional sculpture and even developed techniques for making true portraits of individuals in their society. In their three-dimensional sculpture, we also see adult males portrayed. And it's quite interesting to look at the ornaments and jewelry that they wear, their ear ornaments, their necklaces, nose ornaments, bells, and so on. Moche potters were also skilled at what we call fine line painting, where they could paint very detailed scenes around the chambers of their ceramic vessels. This one portrays 2 warriors engaged in hand-to-hand combat. And again, if you look at the way they're dressed, it's truly extraordinary. They're wearing shirts that are covered with platelets of metal. And the one on the left even is wearing a nose ornament. They have very elaborate headdresses and bracelets and ear ornaments. And this object what you see here we call a back flap. It's a piece of armor that is characteristically worn off of warriors' belts. What I want to do today is to show the comparison between the objects, the ornaments and jewelry that we see portrayed in such detail in Moche art, and compare these with actual objects that have been found in high-status Moche tombs. Let's start with nose ornaments. This is a crescent-shaped nose ornament. It's actually in the exhibition. It's a combination of gold and silver, something that Moche metal workers enjoyed combining, the kind of the complementarity of these two metals. Moche nose ornaments have this characteristic opening at the top, a little opening there, and these two prongs that almost touch are the way that this is worn. The adult male would have the septum of his nose perforated, and then to put the nose ornament on, they simply bend these two elements apart, insert this, and then it covers their mouth and the lower part of their face. This one has a feature that's quite common with Moche jewelry and ornaments, and that is this double-headed serpent along the bottom edge of the ornament has wires projecting out from the surface, and each wire is to suspend a little gold disc, so that when this is being worn, the discs just shimmer. There's constant movement, something that the Moche appreciated very much. Another Moche nose ornament, this one in the form of a crab, has this same technique of suspending gold discs from wires that project out from the surface. Excuse me. And these areas are the residue of silver wires and silver discs that flank the center portion. If you look closely, you'll see that the tail fin of this crab actually is suspended. I'll have to get used to this. Suspended from wire loops so that it will swing front to back as this is being worn. This is one of my favorite of all Moche nose ornaments in the form of an owl head. The eyes are masterfully crafted with two different colors of stone and gold. Keep this one in mind because you'll see something similar to this a little later. The necklaces that we see being worn by individuals portrayed in Moche art are truly wonderful. They usually, when we find them in tombs, come in sets of 10. That seemed to be an appropriate number of beads on a royal necklace. In this instance, the beads are in the form of feline heads, similar to the ones being worn on the ceramic figure. Moche beads are hollow, and they're made with one sheet of metal forming the front, and then another sheet forming the back. Just before these are combined, they're put together, the craftsman would insert a couple of pellets of copper and then very carefully solder these around the periphery. Those pellets then would make the beads rattle. And I've often been surprised when I pick one of these up and it's rattling in my hand. It makes this clacking sound, which the Moche craftsmen appreciated in making these wonderful objects. Here is a bead, one of 10, in the form of a monkey head. Very typical, almost universal, with high quality Moche beads is that they have two perforations on each side. This then allows them to be strung with a double strand stringing, and it keeps them in position along the length of the necklace. It's wonderful how the Moche craftsmen were able to see the details of what they were portraying. In this instance, a monkey with his mouth open. And if you look, you can even see that inside the mouth, the ridges on the palate of this monkey are crafted in sheet gold. Another wonderful Moche bead, 1 of 10 from its necklace, in the form of an owl head. And this, a spectacular necklace made in the form of peanuts, with gold peanuts on one half and silver peanuts on the other. This is a photograph that I took when this was being excavated, and you can see that the gold peanuts come off of the right shoulder of the individual, and then the silver peanuts go up over the left shoulder. Each of these peanuts has pellets in it, so this necklace would rattle. Another burial that is quite remarkable, it was a very large mummy bundle. And in this bundle were hundreds of objects of copper and gilded copper and silver and gold, forming this very large bundle. But one of the last things that the Moche put on top of this bundle before sealing the tomb was this extraordinary necklace of spider beads. I'll show you an image. That's looking at a few of these beads before they were removed during the excavation. Each one has a three-dimensional spider that is standing on its web. The construction of these beads is quite remarkable. This is the bottom part of the bead. As you see here, these are the pellets inside. The bottom part is beautifully crafted to portray spiral bird heads in low relief. Then the upper part is here, and wires that are connected to this project upward. These go round, and that creates this wonderful web of the spider. Here we're seeing the spider open. They've used gold wires that go through the side, across, and out the other side. 4 of those forming the 8 legs of the spider, and then one that comes in and goes out, forming the little feelers in front of the spider's head. And then the upper part of the spider's body is soldered onto the lower part. We can see it here. The body of the spider is in the form of a human head, and then the spider's head is here. These are absolutely wonderful, but you have to keep in mind that there were 10 of them in order to make that necklace. We don't have very many examples of bracelets that were made by the Moche, but I want to show you this one, which is truly extraordinary. It was being worn on the left forearm of this male figure at the time he was buried, and it consists of hundreds and hundreds of tiny beads, stone beads and gold beads. To give you an idea of the size of those beads, that's what they were working with. And they were making the stone beads out of green stone, blue stone, red stone, and white stone. And then the gold beads are hollow. Every one of those tiny beads is hollow, and it's made in 2 parts. 2 cups with holes in the bottom, and then these are soldered around this seam in the middle, so that all of these then are combined into this bracelet. We all hope that someday this would be reconstructed, and in fact it was because of the careful work of the Peruvian archaeologists who were involved. This is the way the bracelet looks today. What it depicts is 4 catfish. The tail of the fin of the catfish is here. Here's the head of the catfish with the eyes and the little feelers project out by the sides of the mouth. Imagine making this out of beads that size, and particularly the gold beads being made as 2 cups that are soldered together. The bells that we see being worn on the belts of adult males have been found in tombs. Sometimes they're gilded copper, sometimes they're pure gold or silver. They are actually made as a full round. What you see here is 1/2 of what was originally a full round of sheet metal, and then it's folded along this seam so that each of these half spheres that project forward is matched by a half sphere that projects back. And in each of those are pellets of copper, so that's what makes these bells sound. The back flaps are the same in terms of construction. This would have been 1 full round of sheet metal folded across the top. Here you see a warrior wearing a back flap of that kind. The one that is here on exhibit is the largest and heaviest gold object that we know that the Moche ever made. And it weighs a little over 3 pounds of almost pure gold. The ear ornaments that we see portrayed in Moche art are also extraordinary. You're seeing in the upper left a portrait vessel showing an individual wearing a pair of these. They are characteristically made with a front face, which you see as this deer that's bounding in midair because the background is all cut away. And then attached to that, there is a tube that is soldered onto the center of the back. That tube would then be used as a counterweight. You would put this through your perforated earlobe, and this tube then kind of goes down and it makes the ear ornament stand up in place like this. These tubes are hollow and they have little rattles in them. I might think, well, that would drive me crazy if I were wearing a pair of these that was constantly making noise. But the Moche appreciated the ability or the characteristic of jewelry that would sound. This has to be one of the most extraordinary objects in the ancient world. We have one of the pair of ear ornaments here in the exhibit. I would encourage you to go back through the exhibit and look at some of these objects again. This central warrior who's facing out toward us is about the size of your thumb. But at that scale, the gold worker has shown us the musculature in the calves of the legs and the thighs. The little kneecap is indicated. The knuckles are indicated on this clenched fist that you see. The bells are attached with little tabs. You can put them on and take them off. The owl head necklace consists of beads that are about the size of BBs, and you would think at that scale you wouldn't try to make them hollow, but they made them hollow. And then they perforated them for a double strand stringing of gold wire, which you see. You can take the necklace off and put it on. The crescent-shaped nose ornament actually swings free in the septum of the nose. If you tilt this ear ornament out, that goes out and then it comes back against the face when the ornament is vertical. And this war club is solid gold, and it's wonderful. You can twist this slightly and slide it out of the fist and wave it around the room and then put it back in the fist. It always comes to rest at exactly that position. The headdresses, or headdress frontlets, we call them, are also amazing. You can see them, one of them depicted in this individual in three-dimensional sculpture. This piece is on exhibit. The form of it, that individual's headdress is an octopus with 8 tentacles, as is this real one, which is about this size of gold. But with this one, the tentacles are in the form, they terminate in heads of catfish. An interesting aspect of this headdress, and ones like it, when they put a deity head in the center, or even have a necklace of deity head beads, they like to have flaps coming out from where the eyebrows would be. And then suspended from the front part of those flaps are triangles of gold. They're suspended with wire loops so that as this is being worn, you can imagine someone walking around, those triangles are shimmering, sparkling, and giving the eyes the impression that they're moving about. That same technique was used on this one, the little triangular shaped platelets. The iconography of this one is wonderful. What it's portraying is a mythical figure to the Moche that we call the crested animal. It has a crest coming off of its forehead, another one coming off of the top of its head. The front part of the body is a feline, feline head and fangs, ears, and feline legs and paws, but the back part of the body is a seahorse. So this wonderful combination is used here. There's the feline's head, the paws, and then the seahorse part of the body coming down below with the wonderful crest up above. And this one, which is an amazing piece by any standard, but you will recognize this owl head. This is almost identical to the owl head nose ornament that you saw previously, and this piece comes from the same tomb. So we expect that these were worn together. An individual would have that owl head nose ornament in their nose and this in their headdress. The construction of this has these gold bangles on the wings, silver bangles on the tail feathers, and then long silver feathers that are suspended from wires so that when this is being worn, it's going to be sparkling and the feathers are going to swing front to back. Now there's some characteristic features of these that keep recurring, and I would like to bring them to your attention. First of all, almost all Moche jewelry and ornaments have forms that are derived from nature. They're not just doing geometric patterns or like stripes or circles and dots. They want to capture something in their forms that they're observing in nature. And so we have birds and fish, crabs, monkeys. Another recurring feature is that they like to make these things make a noise. They want them to clack or ring. And they go to great lengths to build in a means by which these things have their own sound. And another feature is that they go to great lengths to make them move, to have some real movement. And if you think about these three features, forms derived from nature, the objects actually making their own sound, like living things do, and the objects moving like living things do, it suggests that the Moche were thinking about these things as being animated. They weren't just jewelry, just inanimate objects, but animated objects. And this corresponds in an interesting way to some of the fine line drawings that the Moche did. This piece is the drawing that was painted around the chamber of this vessel, and it has a lot of objects being shown. You'll recognize this one. That's a Moche nose ornament, a crescent-shaped nose ornament. But it's not just a nose ornament. That nose ornament has sprouted legs and arms, and it has a head. It's running along as though it's alive. And this headdress is the same. It has legs, an arm, and a head. It's not just a hat, it's a living hat. And this, a shirt with platelets of metal covering the exterior, has its own legs, its head and an arm holding a scarf. And you'll recognize this. Here's a Moche back flap, but an animated, living Moche back flap. This suggests that for the Moche, they were really interested in, or they conceptualized these things as being alive. Several years ago, we created an exhibition of royal tombs of the Moche, and as part of it, we crafted a full-sized mannequin and dressed that mannequin in a set of objects from one tomb. That's the way this looks. If you had an adult male of high rank dressed in a full set of these kinds of things, imagine when this person is walking around in broad daylight with the sun reflecting off of all of the platelets of the shirt, the nose ornament, the ear ornaments. All of this clearly suggests that they were able to dress their elite in splendor. But I think the Moche, the evidence is that the Moche saw them dressing their elite in life, in living things, in the embodiment of life itself. I'd like to conclude by just sharing with you 3 observations that I have had running through my mind many times when I had the pleasure of examining these objects and photographing them and examining how they were made, or on occasion finding them in the tombs that we were excavating, seeing these actually come out of the ground. And the 3 ideas kept coming through my mind. First of all, it would seem that the craftsmen had absolutely no concern of how difficult it would be to create these objects. Second, they appear to have had absolutely no concern for how long it would take. You know, when you think how many hours of work would be involved in making this ear ornament, but you have to make 2 because this is one of a pair, or making 1 spider bead, but you have to make 10 in order to create the appropriate necklace. And my third thought that I've had so often is that the people that made these must have been tremendously proud of what they achieved. And that pride seems appropriate because they were indeed the master craftsmen of ancient Peru. Thank you.